Remember, I was messing with my ears all morning
Yeah.
as I just apparently have weirdly shaped ear canals, according to my sister.
The ability for your ears to pursue that kind of hydraulic engineering as canal is like insane.
It's hard for me to banter because I have an appointment in 1 hour, or in less than an hour. I have an appointment in 51 minutes. And until that appointment happens, the only thing going through my mind is I have an appointment in 51 minutes that I cannot forget. I can't. It's like if I think about anything else, that appointment will go away and I will not go to it. And that is not good when I'm the coach. So,
Mhm. I got to tell one of my favorite anecdotes over the weekend.
what's that?
Billy West, voice actor, does almost all of the voices in Futurama.
Hmm.
Um, when he was a kid, he watched the Nixon Kennedy debates, specifically the one where Nixon like kind of had the flu and had a 5 o'clock shadow going on, and Nick and Kennedy had just gotten back from like vacation.
Hmm.
Um, and Nixon looked so bad that Billy West turned to his mom and said, "Mommy, mommy, look, he's turning into a werewolf." So then later, when he was playing the character of Nixon in Futurama, he very slowly added more and more werewolf to the performance, where he went from, and then we get into like, until I think it's in one of the movies. He does a full on like it's werewolf Nixon 100%. Hello and welcome into another episode of Gifted Kid, Messy Adult, a neurodiversity podcast, the show where potential went to die. I'm one of your hosts, Ellie Michaels. I use she, her.
I am your other host, Jessica Michaels. I use she, they.
And today we are talking about some of the things that we don't see. What do I
Yes.
mean by that, Jess?
Well, this comes to us from Reddit, the subreddit ADHD, and I will give it a read. What are some things you just don't see? I'll notice lots of details others don't, but at the same time, there are certain things I just don't see unless someone points it out to me or I have some kind of procedure to check it. Here are some of them. Glasses of water around the house. I keep grabbing new ones and they end up everywhere. Dirty fridge or dirty microwave. When my boyfriend gets a new haircut, I forget what the previous haircut looked like once he cuts it. I only notice after touching his hair and I feel the different texture. Looking for my phone while it's in my hand. I'm interested to hear other people's things they don't see. And I thought this was pretty interesting because I feel like we have had some of those discussions over the years, and we each have our various things that we don't see in our
Mm-hmm,
immediate
mm-hmm.
environment.
Yeah, what jumps to mind immediately is that I tend to just leave tools and ingredients for making food. I just kind of leave them on the counter after I used them and finished making the food and then left to go eat it. I have apparently been doing this for our entire relationship, and you have just been quietly going behind me and putting away food so it doesn't spoil.
Yeah, there was like before I think we were married, I think when we were dating, there was a podcast we were listening to and they mentioned like the cost something like the cost of doing
Cost of
business or something.
admission. It
Cost of
was
admission. And they
Stan Savage.
specifically mentioned, yeah, Dan Savage specifically mentioned that somebody leaves the sandwich ingredients out and are you gonna complain about it and yell about it or are you just gonna preserve the relationship and just put away the sandwich ingredients because that kind of thing is just going to happen. And so, yeah, so I just, it's particularly like I watch out for fridge stuff and freezer stuff, and I just go behind or oven on or off, stove on or off, those types of things. So just sort of, pop those away and takes half a second out of my day. But yeah, I would say that's a blind spot for sure. I think I am, this person said looking for my phone while it's in my hand. I don't do that often, but I am always in a state of looking for my phone
Mhm.
constantly. I don't know how, but I put it down and it gets sucked to the center of the earth. Or to the point where I start to doubt whether or not cell phones have ever been invented or if I just dreamt the whole thing because it disappears. So that is something that I don't see, but I am not a detail person. I feel like for you, there might be a couple of things that sort of escape your eye, but for me, it's almost dangerous sometimes. The point where I just didn't see an entire piece of furniture in a studio apartment. That was when I knew that perhaps my detailed knowledge was not exquisite.
It was a small desk and it was painted black. Not that big a deal. My issue is that I do see everything, and
Hmm.
then oftentimes it's immediately just written out of my memory. Um, it just like my desk clutter level, I'm always kind of aware of it, but for the most part, I ignore it. But then it crosses a certain threshold, it hits a critical mass, and then it's all I can think about. Like my desk is not really all that messy right now compared to how it has been for the past couple weeks. But today, I can't stand how horrendously messy it is, and I need to clean it, but I don't have time.
Yeah. See, I don't know if I'm lucky or not in that there really is no critical point. I can adapt to a ridiculous degree. Like where I'm using my mouse underneath a layer of paper, where things just build up vertically around me, where all the surfaces are covered, and then things starts to go to the sky like high rises. So I can, there was a period of time when I was living with my mom when I think our kitchen, like the overhead kitchen light, had been out for well over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we just didn't use that particular area of the kitchen when it was dark. It was natural light or bust. So I'm pretty good at modulating my life around almost any circumstance, which becomes really problematic, or could become really problematic if, I had hoarding tendencies, for example, or, I were in an environment because I could easily see how that could be a health hazard or could become unsafe. I think the worst for me it's ever done is there's been enough clutter that I have injured myself dodging the clutter. And I think that is a problem. That's definitely a problem. But I can put blinders on to anything. For me, I think the biggest thing is it's a waste of money because some of my biggest blinders or some of the biggest things that I don't see are once things are in the refrigerator, they are, unless they're a hyperfixation, they might as well have never been purchased. And so, like things that, I always want to eat more fruits, eat more vegetables, but those are some of the things that go away the quickest. And they might as well again join my cell phone in the hole at the center of the earth because I just don't it's like my brain just doesn't register them.
I have never known anyone to eat fewer leftovers than you, and not like out of pride or snootiness or anything. Just it doesn't occur.
Mm-mm.
Um, and yeah, I remember we went out to dinner with your mom when you were living there, and there was some specific place with this one specific sauce that was like the greatest thing ever, and we got our stuff to go, and we're like, oh, could you get a couple of extra little ramekins of sauce and whatever. And then as we were leaving, I was just like, so you guys ever actually eat these leftovers with this sauce? And you're both just like, no. Like, well, why do we ask for extra sauce with with the leftovers. It's like, well, one day we might.
Because we mean to. There's
Hmm.
always the intention, but once something is in a container and in the fridge, I don't know what it is, but my brain just erases all thought or memory of that food. Now, one thing, we do have a little dry erase board on the side of the fridge that we sometimes remember to use to like write down what leftovers are on there, especially if it's something I really like if there's taco stuff or if there's, something really, really special. Um, but yeah, that is something that I have not successfully solved. Now, when I do remember to eat leftovers, I'm always very proud of myself. And I'll run in and I'll say, "Look, Ellie, I'm eating leftovers." And it's a big deal. So that's how you know that something was but something could be amazing. And I won't remember to eat the leftovers the next day. But if you make them for me and bring them to me, I will gladly eat them. Yeah, that's definitely a huge, huge blind spot for me, which is a shame because, if there's leftovers of something, it's probably something that I liked in the first place, and want to keep eating. So, yeah, yeah, that's a bummer. That's a big one for me.
Yeah. I used to be really, really bad about half full cans of soda. This was, back in my youth and adolescence when I just drank a whole lot of soda all the time because parenting, yay. Um, but I would just forget that I had one open. Um, I kind of do that now with like bottles of kombucha, but I learned that that's because as it sits there and warms up, it gets harder to drink. So now I cut it with like a cut can of bubbly water, make it into like one, you know, mild beverage. But even still, like I have one right here.
hmm
Hasn't made a lot of progress in the past 2 hours.
Yeah, I was bad with the big cans of pop. And when they came out with the little, like 100 calorie cans, like the little itty bitty cans, I was like, who would spend it costs more money to buy one of those like per ounce. It's more expensive to buy the little cans than it is to buy the big cans. But I have found that the little can is about as much as I ever want to drink. Like I drink a Pepsi when I'm getting a migraine or I'm feeling migrainey. And we started getting these because that's as much as I want. Getting the big cans, there were always half cans of soda around, and I am a klutz. So if there are half cans of soda around or half cans of anything, I will knock it over and make a giant mess. So for me to be able to finish a little one is much better than me, not drinking half of a big one. Um, yeah, I think me being klutzy probably has kept some of my like non-seeing tendencies in line a little bit because if there are areas of floor or if there are, places that I need to be working, I need to at least have a minimum level of functionality because I just can't get to them. Like we were talking about the floor drobe today, which is the pile of clothes on your floor that are not dirty. They're not clean, clean. Like maybe you wore them once, so they don't go back in the dresser, but they're not dirty, so they go on the floor drobe. My floor drobe can only be as high as like if when I put my feet on the floor, my feet have to find purchase. My feet have to find floor. So that is self-limiting because it can't get higher than that because then that makes that area inoperable and then that's when I start to deal with it is when my feet don't touch the floor. So I guess I get kind of lucky. I'll tell you though, one thing that I had to work on doing better was closing drawers and cabinets because we managed to move into a place where the cabinets were just at like top of my head height enough that if I
Ooh.
don't close cabinets, I will smash my head into them. And then we got a dog. And so that took care of the bottom cabinets. I have to make sure I close the bottom cabinets or the dog could get in there. But that was always a big habit of mine is leaving doors open, leaving lights on, and leaving cabinet doors open. So you always could see where I'd been, because you just
Hmm.
follow the path of open cabinets and open drawers. Right. I think to me, as soon as I take something out of the drawer or put something in the drawer, my business has concluded. The closing of the drawer or the cabinet, that doesn't really matter as much because I'm done. If you want to do something with the cabinet or the drawer after that, that is up to you. But opening it, dealing with the contents, that's it. I'm busy. I have stuff to do. That's step three on a to-do list that is already overwhelmed with stuff that's just sometimes it's just not going to happen.
Uh-huh. The floor is a result of I went to a show with some friends over the weekend, which means that for more hours than I thought it would be the week before, I had to play dress up and then, get everybody's approval on like, well, what about this outfit? Like, what about this outfit with this variation? Um, and it just became very stereotypical teenage girl bedroom where there's just stuff everywhere. And like you wonder why. And it's like, well, I need all of these options visible so that my head can assemble different outfits out of these different visible things. And if they're not in front of me, I forget that they exist. But then, of course, I picked out the like, you know, four pieces of clothing that put together the outfit, but I still have 30 pieces of clothing just kind of around that might have worked. And I haven't put them all away yet. That's that's a part nobody really mentions about
Well, that's why it
all
can
this
be
gender
good.
business.
Yeah, it can be good to have somebody who has like opposite blind spots, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do notice, the stuff on my side of the room, forget it. That's just it is what it is. But I notice stuff on your side. And so I will go in and, if something looks dirty, I'll just throw it in the hamper. Or if there's, I can declutter your side. Like I'm more likely to grab a dish off of your nightstand than I am off of my nightstand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm much more likely to grab something off your, on your side of the bedroom to go into the hamper than I am my side because I think for me, the blind spot has more to do with my things than your things, And I don't know if that's, like I'll clean up your ingredients. It'd be interesting if I ever did anything in the kitchen, it'd be interesting to see if you were following me cleaning up my ingredients. But, I mean, there aren't typically ingredients from frozen taquitos, which is my current obsession. They come in a big box. So
Oh, they're so good.
they're so good.
They're so
Um,
good.
yeah, 90 seconds. It's just,
Mm.
it's fantastic. But I think, and I don't know if that's, yeah, it's just something about your things that stands out to me more than my own things. If that, if that makes sense. Like you mentioned, I think, your desk, like your tools, things like that. Those are things that I feel like I would be more likely to see than things like my decorations or my books. I think there was it was what was it? It was a book about like get things done now that I didn't realize was out and like partially under the coffee table, I think,
Mm-hmm.
for weeks.
Yeah.
And I just didn't notice it. And then you finally picked it up and put it in my hands and I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember I was reading that." And you know, that was not one of my prouder moments.
It
It
should
is a
be.
good book. It is a
That's a
good
hard
book.
bit to pull off. That's hilarious. Like that's a time commitment. It's a timing thing. Like, no, that's solid.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely, I try to like I think not dealing in paper has helped a lot because, it used to be that my workspace and how my workspace looked at home would really impact my getting work done. I needed to be much more aware of piles and where things were because things were paper and there were, one of them. But now having things online where I can access a PDF of whatever I need, however I need it. Now I'm probably going to download it and save it 12 times. But I don't need to necessarily be aware of where things are at all times because I can find them. So I think that sort of allowed me when it comes to my workspace to I haven't had to put energy into overcoming that blindness, so I just haven't. As long as I've got my earbuds for recording, then beyond that, you know, I'm pretty good. I think where I have put that effort is making sure the dog can't get into things or making sure
Hmm.
the dog can't get to the trash or that I don't leave out something like dishes that he's going to want to investigate. And so I think that was probably a good trade-off because it takes a decent amount of mental energy. And for me, if I didn't have a reason to, I would never be keeping my eyes open for those things. So it definitely takes some of my executive function to do. But that's, I think, the thing that is most likely to keep things visible. But if it only affects me, forget about it. If it affects you, if it affects the dog, then I'll be sure to keep, at least half an eye out. But if it's just for my own good, forget it.
Yeah. And it really does seem to be one of those the chaotic superpositioning of being autistic and ADHD, where, like I said, it's not that I don't see the things. I see all of the things. And all clutter low key bothers me. But if I'm busy enough or in a good enough mental space or whatever, I don't react to it bothering me. And
Hmm.
I'm able to just forget it just as soon as I look away. But, you know, if I'm tired, if I'm really busy, if I'm stressed or upset, then all of that clutter is still upsetting, but much more noticeably so.
Hmm.
So, having lots to do these past few days, I really want to clean my desk right now.
Well, that's when I talk to clients about mental energy or spoon theory, whatever you want to call it. We should do it. I don't know that we've actually done an episode on spoon theory. We should do an episode on spoon theory.
I'll do
Um,
spoons and forks. That's the good expansion to it.
yeah. So, but the same principle applies, which is basically you have a finite amount of resources when it comes to your brain and your body. And you can't, whatever you do during a day or during a week or whatever period of time, you need to there's always that balancing. There's always that budgeting. There isn't anything free. So if you are 100% and you're raring to go, then that those things you might not see because your part of your brain is able to go, I see it, but I'm gonna let it go. It's totally fine. But when you're sick or when you've got 1,000 things going on, and so your mental resources are divided already and they're already just working on getting you through the day, then that block of time, block of resources that you were using to put that invisibility cloak in front of things just isn't there. And then then it really, really rides on your nerves. But usually by the time you figure that out, you're already yelling at your spouse or you have kicked something or I have thrown away more things from underneath the bathroom sink in a rage than I would like to admit. We've had to replace some makeup things, some things like, you know, hairspray or whatever, just because by the time I'm there, if I am sitting on the floor and I am opening, and both doors are open to the bathroom cabinet, then just by definition, my executive function has been used to the point of non-existence. And those things, anything in my way, is just gonna go. It's just gonna go because I'm done. And that's not a good point to try to assess well, how am I feeling right now? And how am I reacting to how am I feeling right now? Because it's just like, just get it gone. So it's in the moments when we feel fine that we need to think about managing our spoons. And so if we are using a part of our brain to shield some of the clutter that could get to us later, then maybe we do a little calculation and go, could I pick up a couple of things, or should I, at least put some things in a pile in a straight line or something so it doesn't get to me later? Because usually by the time you notice it, it's not it's not a good time. It's not a good feeling. It's better if we can do those things beforehand. But that's hard to get used to doing because how that feeling of how things affect you can be very, very subtle. In this whole thing, we're talking about things that you just don't see. Having to train yourself to see the world differently, assess the world differently, and assess how it affects you when you're dealing with conditions that could very likely blunt how you feel about things, or how you notice how your body signals you, and those types of things, makes it a really tough exercise, but it's just one of those things that I think if it's not hurting you, if it's not causing, if your bills aren't late, if you haven't tripped over something and blown out your knee, even though you told your wife absolutely that is not what happened. You did not fall over the blanket that was next to the bed when you hurt your knee. That is not what happened. But if that might happen, then you need to make sure, things are taken care of. But if, so you figure out what is really impacting you, and kind of triage and maybe do one thing at a time. I'm going to focus on vegetables. I'm going to focus on vegetables in the fridge, or I'm going to focus on eating leftovers in those type of bite-sized chunks, as opposed to I'm suddenly going to become neat as a pin and everything is going to have its place. And I'm going to make sure that that's, I think, a little much for most of us, so just seeing where the things are, and letting everything else kind of hide, and let it pop out when it feels like it, whenever the floor joe wants to say hi.
Well, I think that'll just about wrap it up for this episode of Gifted Kid Messy Adults. Jess, where can people find out more about you?
People can reach me at coachjessicamichaels.com. You can send me a note. You can set a session if you are thinking about maybe changing jobs, or perhaps dealing with a work-related issue. This would be a great time to sign up for a session to talk with me.
Cool. And if you like our show, please rate and review us. It does wonders for getting people to notice and listen to our podcast. For any other information, please email us your questions, comments, or just outright praise to giftedkidmessyadult@gmail.com. And until next time, take care of each other out there.
Bye.
Short and sweet, plenty of time to prepare for your next thing.
Perfect.